Welcome to the Exploring Unschooling podcast. I'm Pam Laricchia, longtime unschooling mom and author. Join me and my wonderful guests for interviews, information, and inspiration about unschooling and living joyfully with your family. You can find the episode show notes, your free introductory ebook, What is Unschooling, and lots more information at livingjoyfully.ca. And here's the show. Hello, explorers. I'm Pam Laricchia, and this is episode number 145 of the podcast. It's the 10th of October, 2018, as I record this intro. This week on the podcast, I speak with Caren Knox. Caren is a longtime unschooling mom who found that while she has been in and out of therapy over the years, nothing has been more impactful and life-changing for her than becoming a good unschooling mom. We dive into her family's move to unschooling, when her healing journey began, her healing process and what she found helpful, how she wove healing into their unschooling days, and lots more. I do want to mention I'm sorry that the audio isn't great. We pulled it out and cleaned it up as best we could, which is why there isn't a video this week. But sometimes things don't go smoothly. As a personal update, it's been a bit of a quiet week as I finish recovering from my cold, and I do like quiet weeks. I did sign a new author with my publishing imprint, Forever Curious Press, and I'm really excited to be working with her to bring her wonderful book into the world. That was definitely a highlight of the week. And as a community update, I want to thank everyone who has chosen to support my unschooling work like this podcast and my website through Patreon. And a big welcome to new patron, Catherine Magauchi. Thank you so much for joining us. I know I say every week that I deeply appreciate my patrons, and I just really, really do. There's no words to express how generous their support is and how much it helps me to freely share information and inspiration just with anyone who's curious and wants to explore the fascinating world of unschooling. Now, if you'd like to join my community of patrons and scoop up some great rewards along the way, check out the Exploring Unschooling page at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/exploring unschooling. And with that, let's get to my conversation with Caren. Welcome. I'm Pam Laricchia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Caren Knox. Hi, Caren.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, I am so excited to see. Caren's a longtime unschooling mom, and I've known her online for many, many years. And I'm so excited to finally get a face-to-face, almost face-to-face chat in.
Yes.
Get us started, Caren. Can you share with us a bit about you and your family?
Sure. I am a single mom, and I started unschooling when my ex-husband and I were still together. But not too long after we separated. That had nothing to do with unschooling. And both dads are very, very, very supportive of unschooling. And I think that's probably all I'm going to say about that. But I feel very lucky in that aspect because I couldn't have done it as a single mom without that support. Or maybe I could have, I can't say, but I'm definitely grateful for that. Mm-hmm. I have two sons. Evan is now 25 and Seth is 19. And they are both currently working. We have had a lot of upheaval recently. I worked full-time once they got old enough. I had been at a job for over 13 years, working from home for the most part. As they got older, I went into the office and added hours. And I lost that job. And very shortly after that, found out we had to move. So, surprise. So we are all working. I'm working 2 jobs now, which I absolutely love both of these jobs. And they are working. Evan works at a restaurant, and Seth does too, just a different type. So we're just trying to sort of get to a more stable place right now. Yeah.
So everybody's working together.
Yes, exactly. They're very gracious about that as well.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. That's something, just to digress a moment, the kinds of relationships, right, that we build up with our children and within, our close family network, really, really are helpful when other things come in, right? When challenges come up, you've got like, okay, let's work through this. You've got those relationships help you work your way through, because challenging things come up for people. Two really big challenging things at once. You can't control those kinds of things, but it is so helpful, isn't it, to have those strong relationships to kind of fall back on and work out together, right? To figure out, okay, how are we gonna move forward?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And just today, in a mindfulness group I go to, people were talking about how to stay centered and mindful if you're super busy and you've got to wash dishes in 10 minutes and you have to da 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 da. And of course, there's the thing, look at have to. Do you really have to? But one of the points that I made was the daily practice of mindfulness and gratitude for what's right here. Like if you practice that daily, then when you get in that super busy place, you can better access that calm center because you have a lot of practice of it. And it's the same type of thing with unschooling and parenting, that being present, calm, supportive, with them for years and years means that as things were kind of what felt like falling apart, we made it through that without needing to move away from each other, or there was some anger and some little things, of course, because we're all human.
Yeah.
But there's that underlying love and care for each other that we all three know is there no matter what. We are confident that love is there. And that's a little different from the way I was raised.
Yeah. That foundation, right? You're building that foundation of love and trust and connection can carry you through in the times when you need to be using it instead of building it, right? You need to be relying on it. I love that. And that's my situation as well. It was the unschooling that led me there. It was my wish to to unschool well, and learning about that and learning what helped the most that led me to figuring out, being present and being calm, and that whole mindfulness piece just tied in so nicely, and the gratitude piece too, in that there's always good stuff, even in the bad. I mean, that's one of the things that I loved diving into in the Unschooling Journey book, because that's one of the things you discover over the years, that even as bad things happen, even as challenges, let's go with challenges, even as challenges come up, later on, when you look back, you can see, look what we figured out, look what we've made work, and over time, you see that happening time and again. And it helps when challenges come up again to realize, okay, I have no idea where we're going to end up with this, but I know we're going to end up somewhere, right? And we're going to figure this out. I found that very helpful. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. I am very curious how you initially discovered unschooling and what your family's kind of move to unschooling looked like.
Okay. When Evan, my oldest, was quite young, I read a book called You Are Your Child's First Teacher. And in that book, which was just a very gentle parenting book and a very supportive of letting your child explore freely and not really punishment, and saying yes as often as possible, if I'm remembering correctly. And she mentioned Waldorf schools, which to me sounded so beautiful and lovely and like spirit centering for a child. And this was before the internet was so ubiquitous. So, I'm checking books out of the library or ordering books from a catalog called Chinaberry, which is, yeah.
I remember that.
Yep. So to find out about Waldorf, just kind of reading as much as I could. And I sent off for, I'm trying to remember the name of the organization. They're actually still active, and it's something like Alternative Aero, AERO.
Oh, yeah.
They're not called that anymore, I don't think. But it's like Alternative Education something. So in one of the books I read, it said, hey, you can contact this agency and they know about Waldorf and they know lots of things. And I sent that off. My thought was to go to school to become a Waldorf teacher and help to open a Waldorf school where I live. If you're not familiar with Waldorf, it's a type of school that when I look at it now, it's like putting cotton batting around your child. It's very protective, and things like you don't, you tell stories to the children, but you don't get them to look at books or maybe even read books until they can read, until they've passed a certain age. And you try not to play recorded music, but you try to get them around people who play music for fun, so that they have an idea of what's tangible and real and right in front of them. They play with natural playthings, not plastic or anything with batteries. And they say, they educate the heart, the hand, and mind. And what I loved about it is Evan was just a very sensitive person, and he still is. And I wanted to protect him in that way, I wanted the world to not be harsh for him. And as I was looking into that, and I got this Arrow catalog, there was something in there about a Sudbury Valley school.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so interesting. And that's another school where there's not a curriculum. The school has some agreements with the students, but it's basically student run. It's a democratic school, meaning every person there has a vote on the way the school is run. And because students, outnumber the facilitators, it's really students making the majority of decisions. So I sent off again in the mail, for books about Sudbury Valley, and they sent a video. And again, I was just struck by how beautiful. I mean, I wept watching this video of kids who were absolutely free to do as they wished. And, there was no one standing over them saying, oh, but you have to learn blah, blah, blah. It was understood that they would learn everything they needed to learn from exploring what they loved, living life, doing things with the other kids. The idea of a Sudbury school is that they'll kids learn from each other. It's very much about that community of kids. So then it's like, oh, well, maybe I want to start a Sudbury Valley school. And I, started getting a group together here. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a group of parents. And before that could really take hold, and I read so much about Sudbury Valley, I immersed myself in it. I completely understood why things were the Sudbury way and things were not. That I didn't want Evan to go back to school. So to back it up a few years, being single, I needed to earn an income. Some friends of mine from the Lake J League had kids who went to a preschool. It's a lovely, magical place for kids. In that, again, it's not super controlling. They do have the kids, sorted by ages. So it's not like Sudbury, and there are, activities and things, but it's about play. It's a play-based, and it's understanding kids' development in a very natural way, and accepting kids are where they are, and you kind of can't push them to be, where they're not. And it's just a really nice place for a preschool. And they thought I would make a good teacher there. So I worked there. When I worked there, Evan went to preschool. And I thought, I don't want him to go to school, especially as a 5-year-old. It just seemed so harsh for him to be away for 6 hours a day, sitting in a building. I mean, I know, schools are different now, but for the majority of time, kids are in a room. And I just thought, what a weird thing to do to kids. Like, what an odd way to treat these beings who want to explore, like with their whole bodies and their whole selves. But I didn't think I could homeschool. I thought homeschooling meant we'd sit down at the table and we'd do a curriculum, and I would have to force him to do work. And I didn't want our relationship impacted negatively in that way. So he did go to a charter school here, which was the idea for that school was much more open and organic, but because it got a lot of very special needs students, they changed into more rigid slightly and more controlling. And really for some of the students, that's exactly what they needed, and they blossomed. But I saw Evan losing his spark, literally. And I felt stuck, thought, well, he's got to go to a school. We don't have, a Waldorf school here. We don't have a Sudbury Valley school here. And that's when I really thought about starting the Sudbury Valley School, just wanting him to regain his excitement for learning and life. And I thought, while we're getting this Sudbury Valley School together, I'm going to just keep them home. And a friend of mine that I was talking to who homeschooled her kids said, there are so many different ways to homeschool. And I didn't know that. And at the time, I went to the public library to get on the computer And again, it's before everybody had a computer in their home. So I went to the library, and one of the very first things I ever put into a search engine pre-Google was ways to homeschool. Just that phrase. And unschooling came up, and I read it, and I completely didn't understand what it was. I thought I did. And I thought, we can do this. Like, we could do that while we're trying to get this school together. My idea of unschooling at the time, because my parenting at the time was still very much informed by how I was parented, was kind of hands off, sort of like, so I thought, and I'm a disorganized person, and I still am. I thought, oh, good, here's a way that I can homeschool and I don't have to be organized.
Yeah.
So, my kind of thinking about what unschooling would look like was that Evan would come to me, and by then we had Seth too, they're 6 years apart, that they'd come to me and say, Mother, darling, I'd like to learn about electricity. And I would say, of course, my son. And we'd go to the library, and we'd go to the power plant, and we'd go talk to electricians, and we'd, more than just reading about it. Yeah. It doesn't happen that way. That's not a good thing for the most part. Maybe some do. It's much different than that view, but that's what I was expecting. So while we were, whatever you'd call this, not unschooling thing, was, I realized that we really enjoyed being together, and that for them to get up, Monday through Friday at whatever time was deemed, necessary, would really mess up a lot of the really lovely things we had at home, even if they were going to a Sudbury Valley school where they get to finish, whatever thing they started in their own time and in their own way, it would really mess up whatever they started at home, and so I read more about unschooling, and I got on some unschooling email lists, and we thought, okay, we'll do this, we'll do this.
Oh, that is so fascinating. That's really interesting, Caren. I haven't heard the background stories before. So cool about how you were, wanting to do something different and eager to start the school so that you can have what you were looking for. I mean, that's a big piece of it, even with unschooling, right? We don't have something we're looking for, we'll dive in and try to create, right? So that was really cool. And I do love the observation, about, because so often that's our first impression of unschooling, right? It's like, okay, hands off and just wait for the kids to come and ask, right? That is a very, common first impression as you start learning about it. And then, like you said, you guys decided to learn more. And then that other piece about realizing that Sudbury was, it's almost like unschooling in that environment, but it's in a separate environment than home, right? And that you still need to get up and go to a different place. You still have those kind of parameters. And then it's almost like they're living two kind of lives, or they're in two different environments that they have to manage, right?
Yep. And to be Sudbury, it's very much about not having parents involved with the school, which I understand, because not many adults really get how kids learn. Yeah. And so I can see parents being involved and being at the school a lot, and they'd be saying, I brought these books, let's sit down and read. And
trying to direct
that way. The facilitators understand, most parents wouldn't. So I understand what that is. And they have a requirement, because it's about that community of kids, that the kids really have to commit to being there, a certain number of hours every week. So those were two things that were like, that's a little, not great.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great to understand those aspects when you're making the choice, right? I mean, they do make sense for that environment, but those are the choices as part of it. Yeah. So now let's move on a little bit to your more deschooling and more learning about how unschooling really works. What was the most interesting aha moment for you around that time as you were doing the bulk of your deschooling?
I got, and this was after going to an unschooling conference, which truly made the biggest difference in my unschooling. It was Live and Learn in Black Mountain, North Carolina. And literally being with parents who are living radical unschooling just opened my eyes to so much. And seeing the teens and young adults who were amazing, just amazing people, I thought, I really want to get this. I really, this is amazing. And so I had taken time off of email lists because to me, they just seemed very contentious at that time, and a lot of arguing and a lot of just, it didn't seem healthy to me. So I had stepped away from all that. But after going to the conference, I wanted to stay connected to people that I had met, and I wanted to learn more. So I signed back up. And I would say the biggest aha was, the way I worded it at the time was, I don't need to worry. There's nothing they have to learn. And that made sense to me, and it allowed me to just let go of, what about reading? What about this? What about that? What about that? And I got that from reading on the email list, and also being with my kids and seeing how they were learning. And I think I thought, even if they reach adulthood and aren't great readers and their handwriting's not great, they can still create a life, really successfully. And that's, part of reading the Sudbury Valley stuff was reading their outcomes, of their graduates. So, so that allowed that for us to happen. But I just literally, it felt like a click in my head,
Yeah, I can feel like the weight release, right? It's like, for me, that was tied in with the realization, that they're always learning, which you figure out from watching your kids, right? They're always learning. They're not going to stop learning just because they're 18, and they don't have to learn these certain things by this certain age. They have a lifetime to learn it. And it's like, oh, look, it can just come up. Right? Yeah, it makes such a huge difference. Yeah. But that the time frame is our lifetime. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's, that's another layer to peel away around the idea of curriculum, right? Because at first it's like, no curriculum, okay, but we follow their curiosity and they learn these things. But to realize that you still have in the back of your mind often just that what a curriculum implies, which is there's a certain set of knowledge or skills that one should have by certain ages. So that's the deeper layer of releasing curriculum, is understanding that that too is artificial, that they really can learn whenever.
Yeah. Around that same time, I think this is when my mom moved out of our childhood home. I'm not so great with timing of things, but I think that's it. But she sent me a box of my stuff from the attic, and there was a good bit of schoolwork in there. And I looked through, there were papers and essays and things that I had gotten A's and, A pluses and 100s. And I remembered none of it. I didn't, for a lot of them, I didn't even remember researching whatever it was.
Yep.
And I thought, I spent how much time doing this work, and it again, that the timing of that was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So I'd love to dive into our topic of healing and unschooling. And I was curious, was your healing something that you were working on before you found unschooling? You went on that, school, Sudbury school journey, or was that kind of a need or something that you uncovered through moving to unschooling? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So definitely before I had kids, I had lived with depression from the time I was around 17 or 18, and had been to therapy for that. Had, tried medication once and didn't have such a great experience. And I, I don't know where my brain just went, but it's back now. I was using drugs. I was drinking alcohol and smoking pot. Not anything harder than that until I dropped acid. And the very first time that I dropped acid, I had this amazing experience of feeling that everything really is one, and like very deeply feeling that. And looking I'll just tell you this, but looking at the clothes that I was wearing and taking them off, like, I really, like, what is clothing about? Who needs clothing? We don't need clothing. And jewelry, and just tossing my jewelry away, like, this is also unnecessary. What, we don't need this to live. I was on a mountaintop outside of Boone, North Carolina, and it was a beautiful summer night. And thank goodness a friend was there. A few friends were, but this particular friend was taking care of me, wrapping me in a blanket. And he said, what you're feeling really is real. Like, that's it. But you can't get there through drugs. Like, you can't stay there through drugs. And well, how do I get there? And he said, you'll find out. Like, that's your thing. You have to look within. I had no idea what the phrase "look within" even meant.
Yeah.
I was very I don't know how to say it except to say out of touch with myself. Mm-hmm. I was very much in my head. I made choices and did things based on what people would think of me. I couldn't even tell you what I wanted. I would say what I thought the other person wanted me to want.
Yeah.
Very much not in here. And that experience combined with shortly after that, I attempted suicide. And I obviously wasn't successful, thank goodness. But, two things together. And then as I recovered from my suicide attempt, I read the book Be Here Now by Ram Dass, where he talks about his experience dropping acid, experiencing oneness, and wanting to explore it more. And I thought, oh, this has happened, like more people than me, you know? And he advocated, of course, meditation and finding a teacher and, different things. And I got very much into meditation. Getting into meditation brought me to knowing myself more, and it brought me to where I really didn't want to use drugs anymore at all, like at all. Even caffeine, was like, we shouldn't need these external things. And I joined a 12-step group at that time. I'm no longer involved in that, but so from there, healing and working the steps, looking at myself, learning about myself. At that same time, I was seeing an exceptionally good therapist who taught me what looking inside meant and kind of showed me how, walked me through doing that. So definitely before kids, I had started that journey. And I actually thought I was never going to have kids. I really thought I was going to, become like a guru and go live on a mountaintop away from people. Come to find out, that was my attempt to not live in this body, that was my attempt to escape this particular world we've created. And I didn't know that at the time. But I wasn't so successful at being an ascetic, and I got pregnant with Evan. And been in therapy off and on,
Yeah. You mentioned to me before that you had been in and out of therapy and had explored a number of different healing modalities, like you talked about meditation there, etc. So I just was curious if you could share a bit about that process. In that, what did you find helpful for you along the way?
Well, meditation is still helpful for me. I'm still discovering things about that and about being mindful and what that means. And in the 80s, I think it became kind of popular to look at your inner child and do inner child work. And there are parts of that I think kind of take it a little far, but looking at that perspective of the young me that I can still be in touch with has been very, very helpful. When things are kind of not in great control and I'm not making good choices, I'll realize, like, well, my 8-year-old has been in charge for the past few weeks, so we're eating donuts and Cheetos as meals. And, like, okay, it's time for me to be the adult. And, that sort of thinking process is very helpful. And Reiki, I heard about Reiki and I thought it was fake and weird. And I, Google it, was like, right. But then I met someone. The moment I met her, it was literally, here's my other half. I've been looking for you, you know? And she was a master, and a mutual friend of ours took her class and had this very amazing things happen that brought me to tears to hear. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll try this Reiki class. And I did. And it really just opened me up in a very interesting way. So Reiki has been very helpful in terms of learning it and I guess opening my mind up enough to learn it.
Yeah.
Some personal growth things. There's a blogger named Steve Pavlina, and I stumbled across his work, and it's not all a super great match, but there's so much really good stuff that he has learned about personal growth, being true to who you are, not hiding who you are, that I got a lot out of his work also. And like I found his work close to the same time I went to my first unschooling conference, close to the same time that I got, I can't remember the word, attuned to Reiki healing. This was all, you know, kind of happening close to the same time. It was a big, big time of learning.
Yeah. Well, so how did you find your healing weaving in with the unschooling?
Because I wanted to be more present with the kids. I wanted to not react in harmful ways. And I think knowing that there's healing, like I can look at whatever this trigger is and heal that. Like that was huge for unschooling, just trusting that this isn't who I am, you know, that I can grow and I can change. A huge piece of that was learning to be vulnerable. And I said before, I thought of unschooling as kind of hands off. To really understand and know Evan and Seth, I had to open up to them, to their being. And I was very protective. You know, as a child, I endured pain and I protected myself in my heart, you know, and wanting to deeply connect with my sons, I had to learn how to crack that open. And doing that helped me really accept who they are without judging, and help them be more of who they want to be or they already are, to provide them the support to really be who they're meant to be in the world, you know? And that's...
Yeah, I was just going to say that is such a cool observation, that to really recognize who they are, it helps so much for us to get to a vulnerable or comfortable place with recognizing who we are, right? And being able to bring that person, because they can sense when we come with layers and, you know, protections over top of us, and they learn that they should do that too. It feels like, right? So you get those layers reflected back at you, because that's how they're learning to be in relationship with another person, with you, right? So that's what they're learning, right? So when we do the work to actually understand ourselves and gain that self-awareness, and it's so vulnerable to get to the spot where you're going to bring your real you, depending on our experiences growing up, we can have built a lot of layers on top of that, right? To protect ourselves truly and needfully, but that work to get to our gooey center, whatever you want to call it, right? And bring that to our relationship with our kids, because they haven't yet, they certainly may have to have some layers, etc. Like, my kids went to school for a few years, etc. But for us all to have this safe space, this safe unschooling space. And I was going to say home, but we take it with us because it's our relationship. It's how we are together, right? It's that trust that you build, that honesty, etc. But you know what I mean, right? And it's so valuable for unschooling, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
In so many ways too, because that work affects my other relationships in the world and the way that I show up in the world. And
it's true. It was all to learn, like, for unschooling was kind of the impetus, right? I mean, I know you, in your situation, you started your healing journey before you came to unschooling. Unschooling took it another level deeper, right?
Definitely several layers. Yeah.
A few layers deeper, absolutely. And then you can be that person in the world once you get that, understanding of yourself and that acceptance of yourself, which we learn through accepting our kids. I mean, for me, so much of what I learned about being human and treating myself graciously was through doing that for my children. And then realizing this is for humans. This is the way we should all be treated, right?
Including myself.
Exactly. Including ourselves. We are people.
Yeah. Very good at saying who you are is perfect exactly as you are, except for me. I'm I'm not that way. I'm a horrible person. And actually I'm only recently letting go of that story, that I'm broken and wrong, which is so freeing and beautiful. But I think the desire to, like you said, create that safe space. And I think Sandra Dodd maybe called it the unschooling nest, Yeah, but yes, I wanted that unschooling nest. And I wanted my kids to know that unconditionally they have home. Like, I think so many parents think that, well, their boss isn't going to be, fire truck's going by. Their boss is not going to be nice to them, and the world is a harsh place, and you need to prepare them for that. And so they kind of stay closed off, and not so kind to their kids. What I have found is that solid base of kindness and them knowing they have a home, they have a soft nest to come to no matter what. that's what they need to survive, the harsh world, which I wonder where these people live. I mean, what a privileged thing to say. Like, I mean, for where I am currently in the US, and people talk about the harsh world, they're meaning that people aren't that kind. It's not harsh like a lot of other countries, may have things, but the majority of people in my life are very kind and very generous, and I'm so sad that that's not true, apparently, for people who believe they have to steal their children for a rough life ahead.
Yeah.
Or that, that argument, their boss won't do that for them. Like, I'm not my kid's boss, I'm their mom. I don't want to have an employer-employee relationship with my kids. They are my kids.
Well, and I think the point that you made is so valuable, in that making them a harsh person, getting them used to harshness in preparation for it, just really escalates that relationship. Whereas giving them, that wholeness, that kindness, that knowing that they've always got, that they have in their back pocket a safe, wonderful, loving place that they can go to, they can absorb that. And because we are always, speaking with them about individuals, right? They know this is that person. This is that person's personality. Okay, your boss, your coworker, whoever it is, they realize this isn't the whole world. I have in my back pocket this really great thing, so they aren't taught you have to fight back. It's a power thing. And that escalates to really hard relationships at work or in whatever situation, right? But to try to explain to people that no, this soft lovingness, knowing that that's there, and how we understand other people and accept other people, just not accept as in say it's okay, but they're understanding that that's that person. It's not about me, it's about them, right? Can help them deal with that so much better, I think. Yeah, that's such a great point. I've never thought of it that way. So very cool. All right. Last question, Caren. Looking back at this point now, so 1925, what do you most appreciate about choosing unschooling?
I'm sorry, your voice went out right at the end there.
What do you most appreciate about having chosen unschooling?
Primarily the relationship with Evan and Seth. And it exceeds anything I could have imagined in terms of compassion and support and love and presence.
Ooh, I love those words.
And that plays out too. Again, opening up to that vulnerability, becoming open-hearted, helps others, outside the home. I mean, even momentary interactions are made better by full presence of my whole self.
Yeah.
I can feel it and I know it and I've experienced it. I've said before that if I had learned what I learned through unschooling about acceptance and patience and generosity, that my husband and I would never have separated. And I'm not, I don't, that's all I'm going to say about that. A lot of people have a lot to say about, that particular subject.
It's important stuff. It's valuable.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But that's true. It's true. And last year, I spoke at the Free to Be Unschooling Conference, which is in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And I led a circle. And in the conversation, and a circle chat, is the way that I did it was to talk about my own experiences and my own thoughts. And then different people shared different things about what they've experienced or learned or had questions about. I highly recommend circle chat. Highly recommend. I wish I had one once a week with other unschooling.
Yeah.
It's just, I learn a lot. But in that, a mom was saying that I think it was her son's friend really loved potatoes, like all kinds of potatoes, fried, mashed, baked, whatever. And so when he came over, she would give him potatoes because his, I guess his parents thought, well, that's not so healthy. So when he came over, she gave him as many potatoes as he wanted, And she said something so beautiful. And I know her first name is Elisa, I think is how it's pronounced. I hope I find out I hope I remember her last name and everything. But she said she healed herself by being generous to this child, that something in her healed as well. And she said something so beautiful that has stayed with me, because we know the healing goes forward. Like, we know if our kids are more whole and less damaged, and they live by these values of compassion and understanding and patience and vulnerability, we know that goes forward, that their relationships will be better for that. If they have kids, their relationship with their kids will be better. Their kids will be more whole. And what Elisa said was, it also goes backwards, because she was healed with that generosity and learning that for herself. And I believe it heals the past as well.
Wow.
Partially our view of it, that we have more compassion for what we maybe went through. But I also believe on a very real, energetic level that it heals the past as well. And it heals the world, learning how to be generous to your kids and how to be vulnerable with your kids. And that it's safe for them to know that you love them. That's not a dangerous thing,
It's not a weakness. Yeah.
It heals the world. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, Caren. And a wonderful way to end. I want to thank you so much for sharing your stories today. It was such a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad I finally got a chance to chat with you face to face.
Me too. And really nice to connect. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh,
I love thinking about all this stuff and talking about all this stuff. And
yeah. I know.
If other people benefit from that, awesome.
Okay, before we go, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Boy, I'm on Facebook. I am not loving Facebook right now. That is probably the best place. They can send a message. I may not accept friend requests. I'm just having a weird thing with Facebook right now.
Yeah, no problem.
But that's where I am. I would say most of the time.
Yeah.
So reach out through Messenger. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have, don't keep a blog or have a website. So that's kind of it right now.
Yeah, no problem. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Caren, and have a great night.
Thank you. I hope you do too.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes at livingjoyfully.ca/podcast. While you're there, be sure to check out the third book in my Living Joyfully with Unschooling series, Life Through the Lens of Unschooling. This book is a wide array of essays drawn from my blog that shed light on the day-to-day lives of unschooling families. You'll find essays tackling everything from learning to read to visiting relatives, all organized around 9 keywords that have been woven into the fabric of our unschooling lives. Deschooling, learning, days, parenting, relationships, family, lifestyle, unconventional, and perspective. The theme is life, the lens, unschooling. Until next time, have fun living and learning with your family.